Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. I told my ex to give me her house or go homeless. After that, Entitled Sister wants me to provide for her and her baby. And after that, Service Dog and the Zoo. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to drink a glass of sour milk. Joke's on you, Reddit boy. I love sour milk. So please, smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. I told my ex to give me her house or go homeless. I, 36 male, have one kid, Melissa, who is 14, with my ex, Jane, who's 39. We were together for about a year when she got pregnant and expected me to marry her because of it. While I did agree that it would be best for us to move in together, I never said that I would marry her, and she didn't tell me that she expected me to propose until her final month of pregnancy, and she yelled at me for not proposing sooner. Due to the lack of communication and mass assumptions, I set the record straight and said that I wouldn't marry a woman that I've only known for less than 2 years just because she was having my baby. Cue the flying monkeys that were her parents, friends, etc., saying that I needed to take responsibility and make an honest woman out of her. I countered that if getting married, especially before the baby was born, was so important to her, then she should have picked a different guy. I also pointed out that I was taking responsibility when I moved in, agreed to pay all the bills because Jane didn't want to work while pregnant, attended the majority of doctor's appointments, all the birthing classes, and built the nursery. Jane was so mad that she stormed out and didn't speak to me until after she'd given birth. That ticked me off, and I demanded a DNA test before signing the birth certificate, and she was so bitter that I wouldn't marry her. By the time Melissa was 5, I had already taken Jane to court 7 times about custody and visitation. Things got slightly better after Jane started dating again because I would nonchalantly imply that she was still in love with me, and her boyfriend didn't respond well to that. She backed off and wouldn't fight me on my scheduled time. Eventually, the guy gave her a ring, but by then, Melissa was enough to be vocal about wanting to spend time with me. While I am glad that Jane found a new guy, this man wasn't exactly a prize and always wanted something for nothing. He wanted to be his own man and own a business, and that inherently wasn't bad, but he just was bad at it. When the bank wouldn't give him a loan for his next business venture, he convinced Jane to take a mortgage on her house, and it failed. Jane called me, claiming to need more money for our daughter's expenses, and when I asked her for a detailed report, she got upset and tried to guilt trip me. She said that she would take me to court, but since she had already gotten an increase 3 months ago, I knew it would be denied. That's when Jane confessed to me about the mortgage, and that if I didn't help, Melissa would lose her home. I countered, saying that so long as I had a roof, Melissa would never be homeless. Cue the flying monkeys again. Then I told her that I would help with the loan payments after she signed over the house to me. I made this offer knowing that she wouldn't accept it, but prepared to do it because I can say that I tried to help and so that our daughter wouldn't be in danger of losing her home because of her mom's stupid choices again. Am I the jerk? ETA. Because of word count, I didn't initially put this in, but just to be clear. 1. My ex made dumb choices and wants me to bail her out without getting anything in return, just because I can, and resent her for trying to use our daughter. 2. As stated in the post, my daughter can just live with me if her mom loses the house. I would never leave my own kid homeless. Have no idea where you got that. 3. Yes, the house would be completely in my name, and I would sign it over to my daughter once the mortgage is paid off and she's of age. This is being done so her mom can't ransom the house anymore. 4. Yes, technically my ex would become my tenant if she agreed, and I would also make her sign an agreement or evict her. 5. After years of manipulation and scheming, I am indifferent to the idea of my ex suffering. 6. Me saying that she still had feelings for me was, admittedly, a tactic to get her boyfriend turned husband to get her to back off because of the constant hassle she gave me just to spend time with my daughter and maintain my legal rights as a parent. Going through the courts is expensive and takes up a lot of time. This was not about ego. Entitled Sister wants me to provide for her and her baby. So I, 27 female, moved to the US almost 7 years ago. I have 2 half-sisters from my father's side, all from different women. We used to be very close, and despite both of them being illegitimate, I shared with them part of what little inheritance I got from my grandparents. They never recognized them and left them with nothing. 2 years ago, my sisters also moved to the US. My middle sister, 28, let's call her Mary, got a company to host her with a work visa. The eldest, who's 30, Karen, not her real name, got a student visa and moved in with me since I was already working and earning a good salary. The arrangement was that I would pay bills, she would get a job at the university since she's not allowed to work outside, and that was her spending money. I would cover all bills and food. The only thing I asked was to help with some minor chores. I have a dog and a cat, and I told her she had no responsibility while she had work and school. It was fine, since I work from home and I have a step-family that helped me maintain my home, mostly because I'm the free babysitter for them. Pretty sweet deal for a student, right? Well, apparently that wasn't enough. While she was in school, Karen met Ken. I knew Ken from the time I went to university. He's a creep, but I thought he was harmless. Karen was head over heels for him. I warned her Ken had a bad reputation at the university, but she didn't care. She's a big girl, so I let it be, with the only condition that Ken was not allowed in my place. Lockdown hits, and my hours were cut. Karen's school goes on pause, and she loses her campus job. Because of all of this, we moved into a small apartment. I took a second job and did some freelance on the side. Needless to say, I had no personal life. I am dating someone, but he was also swamped with work and bills, so we barely met each other. During this time, Karen and Ken apparently got closer, and he began to appear in the apartment. Karen was not part of my lease, but my landlord was very understanding. Ken began making really inappropriate comments about me. I am not a beauty queen. I just look a bit exotic, as Ken put it. I'm mixed and from the Caribbean, so I have a bit of everything, and somehow it all shows. Karen looks more like our father. He was of European descent. In all honesty, Karen is more attractive. I only look foreign in this little intermountain region city. Ken would go out of his way to touch me and was just invasive. I managed to just keep in my room while he was around or use the excuse that my pets needed a walk. I didn't know exactly why, but Karen kept pushing for me to spend time on my own with Ken. It would be good for you to bond with your future brother-in-law. They had only been dating 7 months at this point. Whatever, I didn't care. I found excuses to avoid it. November 2020, I got a better position at my main career job, so I was able to quit my second job and have more me time. I reconnected with friends, and one of them asked me if I was okay. I asked why, and he told me Ken had been saying he was very close to getting me for personal time. I was not okay with that idea, and I very loudly said I would rather be hit by a train than doing anything with Ken. Since I'm in a small city in the Intermountain region, the kind that most people in the same area know each other, a lot of people had text messages or creepy stories to tell me. That was it for me. I went home and demanded an explanation. They didn't deny it. Ken even said Karen had said it was fine and I was doing them a solid as her sister, since he really had a thing for me. I told them both they were disgusting and that Ken had to leave or I would be calling the cops. Ken left with some insults sent my way, and Karen began telling me she didn't see the problem since my partner and I were on a break. We were not. I told her I was not for her to sell around like property and that she had 2 weeks to find a place for her own. I was done with her. I called all my relatives, sent them copies of the text messages I was given, and no one in our family wanted anything to do with Karen. She moved in with Ken a few days later. It took me some effort, but I was able to get a restraining order for Ken. Couldn't get one for Karen. Still, they disappeared from my radar, except for a few encounters, which were easily resolved with showing I was about to call 911. And then today happened, and I had to hold back my laughter. Mary had kept tabs on Karen, since sisters and all, and she messaged me with a notice. Hey, Karen just called me. She's pregnant and Ken kicked her out. I just stared for a few minutes and responded, oh, that's sad. Mary knew and supports that I don't care or have any intentions to help. Karen used Mary's phone to call me. She begged me to help since Mary is only letting her stay for a week before she moves to another state. Said that she missed her little sister and had no one else to go to. That she knows I have family health insurance. I pay for private health insurance for 2 relatives that are in hard times and have health conditions, and that I should do something like that for her pregnancy bills. This baby is a blessing and I should want to help her raise it, meaning I pay for everything. I let her pour her heart out for a good 5 to 7 minutes, then said, nope. I ended the call. She tried calling again for a while, then stopped when I got a text message from Mary saying she had left her phone on the counter and she was sorry for the spamming. Most of my family agrees with me, even Karen's mom. The only one that disapproves is Karen's aunt. She's not my aunt, but I called her aunt anyways since I've known her for so many years. She's been putting pressure on me most of the day. She only stopped when I told her one more message and I would show her text messages to my stepfather, who is her landlord. I feel bad for the baby to a point, but this is one of those moments that all I can think is this is not my circus and these are not my monkeys. Edit 1. Someone mentioned the region inconsistency. I never looked into it since I didn't really care, but where I live I heard Midwest and Northwest interchangeably. As far as I was concerned, it was the same thing. We don't have that type of region in my country, so I decided to Google while at work and found out neither is right. I live in the Intermountain region. Thanks, random stranger, for making me check on the messy regional system. Not even Google agrees on it. Also, a small explanation of my grandparents. They were very old traditionalists. By the end of their lives, they didn't have much to give, so they chose to give it to the legal grandchildren. My father had many kids. I might not even know all of them. Grandparents were just tired of every other year having a new grandchild appear, and in some cases, a moocher mother attached. Last, Karen's visa. She had an extension since lockdown, but that is over. She's overstaying her visa. This is very common. I have relatives that do it. I don't agree, but I also had one foot in since my stepfather is American. Service dog and the zoo. This happened over 5 years ago, but I was reminded of it when my oldest was going through pictures. In hindsight, going to the zoo with a service dog was not one of my best ideas, but my kids were still at the age where they liked it. Plus, my friend had her kids for the summer. Spoiler, no one tried to steal my dog. After getting tickets, I'm asked to go to the office so they can notify zoo security that there's a service dog in the zoo and to let me know what areas of the zoo I cannot go in. Basically, I couldn't go into any of the areas where the animals roam freely. Completely understandable. I finish up with the office. We start walking around, and one of the first big cats enclosures we see is the jaguar. So beautiful, but I hate how small the enclosure is. I hate the zoo personally. And this is when the entitled parents start. Usually during the day, most of the animals are laying down, but today I brought a dog into the zoo. The jaguar caught the scent of my dog and became extremely restless. The way the enclosure was built, only a chain link fence and 3 feet separated us. My dog was just sitting next to me with this beautiful and deadly animal staring at us. Because the jaguar was active and close to the fence, people kept coming. Very quickly, I was trapped between the fence and a crowd. I have my dog for mobility and anxiety issues. Getting out of that crowd was difficult. Thankfully, my friend's fiance saw me and pulled me out of there. When my friends saw the crowd building, they grabbed my kids and pulled them away. So that was the jaguar exhibit. Thankfully, the next enclosure was one that I couldn't go in, so I got to sit down for a bit. During this, I had a mom with 2 kids, young but I don't know how old, demand I go back to the jaguar so her kids could see him up close. I told her no, not happening. She did the whole whining and yelling thing, but at that point, my kids and friends showed up, told her no again and left. She started following us. But it's a zoo. Can't tell her where she can't walk as long as she isn't bothering us. Next big enclosure we get to is the wild dogs. This enclosure has viewing glass instead of chain link fencing. They perk up when they catch my dog's scent as well. And again, we draw a crowd. This time I have a lot of kids pushed up to the front. Guess what? The kids have short attention spans. They saw the wild dogs and then saw my dog. They were more interested in my dog. That exhibit was heck getting out of, as I didn't want to hurt any of them. So now, instead of just one annoying mother dragging her kids behind us, we have multiple entitled parents with kids. Every enclosure we see, this crowd would push to get to the front. If I left before one of them got to see the animal, they would demand I go back. Each enclosure, I was losing my grip on my temper. My friends saw this and did their best to try to keep me calm. We're at the tiger exhibit next, and now I'm wondering if the zoo even feeds the animals. The tiger is pacing and staring and gauging distance, trying to get to us. After about a minute of that, I couldn't stay there anymore. I was terrified the tiger would try to take the risk and jump. But again, the dang crowd. Now I'd had enough. I ended up telling the crowd to back up and get away from me. These parents got mad at me for the words I used in front of their kids. How could you? Now, my revenge. Monkeys do not like dogs at all. They will go nuts if you go near their enclosure. Well, I had this lovely crowd of entitled parents who refused to leave us alone, and we are coming up on some of the monkeys. Once the rest of the crowd caught up, I started going towards the monkey exhibit. My friends took my kids around the enclosure in case I didn't get out fast enough. As soon as I got close, the monkeys started yelling and jumping. The crowd was so excited, the monkeys never jump around. I got to the beginning of the exhibit and rushed through as fast as I could. Limited mobility sucks. But it was the crowd that had feces thrown at them. Afterwards, I was sitting with my kids and friends when one of the women comes up to me yelling about how she never had monkeys throw this at her before, and it's all my fault. Her screaming drew the attention of one of the zoo security. After the woman started yelling at him about how awful I was and how she had monkey crap thrown in her hair, that it's my fault. He asked me what she meant. I told him about how no matter where we went in the zoo, a crowd followed us and made the whole visit miserable. The woman started yelling that it's my fault for bringing a dog to the zoo, and if I didn't want the attention, then I should have stayed at home. At that point, we were done with the zoo and decided to go get something to eat. This is how I learned that taking a service dog to the zoo is a bad idea. Thankfully, my kids are old enough that if they want to go to the zoo, they can go by themselves. Me and my boy prefer places that have AC. Am I the jerk for saying that my boyfriend had a lifetime commitment to his ex since they are co-parents? My boyfriend used to be married to Jennifer, and they have twins. I had never dated a father before, so I really didn't know what to expect. Anyway, my boyfriend and Jennifer are co-parents and split the parenting duties pretty equally. They see each other a lot and communicate a lot about their sons. I realized after we were together for a year that things really weren't working for me. I knew my boyfriend had a commitment from before me to being a father, and that would be a lifelong commitment. I felt okay with that and felt like that made him a good dad and a good man. I didn't realize that also meant he'd have what I see to be a lifelong commitment to Jennifer. To co-parent, well, they have to communicate often, see each other often, work through disagreements or stressors respectfully, share holidays, stay in touch with each other's families, etc. I felt like those were things I respected him for doing, but I also didn't feel like were what I wanted in a partner. I want a partner who commits to me alone and no other woman, and I want to feel like life decisions are made between me and my partner primarily, not between my partner and his co-parent primarily. I felt like the main relationship and the dynamic was my partner and Jennifer. So I talked to him after about a year, saying that I respected his commitment to his family a lot, but I didn't feel like the relationship was working for me because I couldn't make a life with someone who already had a lifetime commitment with another woman. My boyfriend was really upset with me for saying he had a lifetime commitment to Jennifer, saying they were divorced. I said maybe not a marriage commitment, but they definitely have a lifetime commitment to raising their kids together. They will always be the parents of two boys who will be in their lives, hopefully for their whole lives. And with that family, they would always have a commitment to their family and to each other. And that I was happy they could do that for their kids' sake, and I respect it, but it wasn't for me. My boyfriend was really angry, saying he never wanted to commit to Jennifer. She pressured him into marriage since she got pregnant young, and she isn't his girlfriend or anything, but the parent of his kids to him, and it's offensive to tell him that he has a lifelong commitment to her. This is where I probably messed up, but I said, "But you do, whether you like it or not. You have a family together." He said that he needed some time alone and left for a few days. I feel conflicted. I honestly think that he does have a commitment to Jennifer, and I understand and respect that. But I also know he's upset to hear that, and to hear that's the reason I don't see a relationship working long term. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he has a commitment to the mother of his kids? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know.
I don't think she's a jerk at all, but the story still hit me right in the feels. Still a better love story than Twilight.
Am I the jerk for ruining my husband's hiking trip? I'm 27, female, and my husband, who's 28, and his 4 friends, all males between the ages of 27 and 32, have a yearly hiking trip they take for 2 weeks. They've done it for years, and it's fun for me because I really enjoy being alone, and it's fun for my husband because he gets to hang out with his friends. However, within the past couple of years, the camping trip has always ended in a fight or an argument that kind of ruined the whole thing, but they were hopeful for this year. I will preface this with saying I do not like these friends. These friends are ones he's had since elementary school, and they just have formed a lifelong bond, even if they don't like each other anymore. A month before our wedding, 3 of them decided to take a random trip to Cabo without checking the dates, and the 4th one was having a baby. Obviously, we didn't plan him in the wedding party because of that, but my husband only had one groomsman and no support on his wedding day. They do that kind of crap all the time, where my husband is always kind of left in the dust. They also really don't like me because I helped my husband get sober when we started dating, and they don't like that I took away their real friend. So on these trips, I always just ask that my husband call or text me when they're winding down at the day, so I know he's alive and well. It doesn't have to be long, it could just be a quick text, but he always calls because, well, I'm his wife and he likes me. These calls never ever last more than 10 minutes, ever. I usually make him hang up to go have fun. His friends apparently hate that he calls me or even texts me on this trip at the end of the night. This came to a point where they hid his phone from him for 2 days just so he wouldn't call me. I thought that something had happened to him and messaged their respective partners, whom I'm actually pretty decent friends with, about if they had heard from them. One girlfriend called and screamed at boyfriend to give him his phone back. When they finally did, my husband called me in near tears, saying that the trip so far had just been a nightmare and he just wanted to come home. He told me they used the trip as an intervention to convince him to divorce me because I am too needy and demand too much from him. Both of those things are severely untrue. I'm not perfect, but I'm certainly not those things. Anyway, this set me off and I messaged their partners about this. I was really upset and wanted to understand what made them do that. Well, apparently I started a whole storm of them all calling their boyfriends and going off on them for me. I didn't ask them to do it, and I felt bad because I just needed to vent. This made the trip even worse for my husband because they just kept calling me names. Since being home, my husband is not mad at me at all and understands why I did what I did. He knows they're in the wrong, but now I know I've ruined a relationship he's had for years because I just didn't keep it to myself, and I also ruined a 2-week trip for him. Am I the jerk? Edit. For clarification purposes, I wanted to emphasize that I'm not asking if I'm the jerk for wanting a text or a short phone call to make sure he's alive. I feel 100% justified in that, and I'm not asking for a judgment call here. I'm asking if I was the jerk for contacting their girlfriends. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the friends? Please let us know.
I really hope you're able to keep your husband away from those bozos. Just because you've known someone since you were kids doesn't mean they're your friend.
Entitled neighbor caught by his own police call. So a few years back, I, 20 male, had a small 2-room flat in a very old building in which you could hear everything. My bedroom was right next to the wall of my neighbor's, 27 male, flat. He was a stupid lunatic who always played video games until 4 or 5 a.m. And he had some kind of problem with losing in MP. So every time he would lose, he would start screaming, throwing things around and punching the wall, waking me up almost every night. At the time, I was doing 2 jobs and needed every second of sleep I could get. I tried talking to him on several occasions, but nothing helped. One time, when I was out for work, I even let my sound system run a mix of artillery and machine gun barrages just to show him how annoying this stuff could be. But as entitled people are, it didn't do any good. Fast forward a few months, and nothing improved, and I was getting crazy about this. One Saturday night, I had a little poker game running in my flat with a few friends, and my neighbor was having one of his usual tantrums. Since I had guests and they didn't like it, we turned up the music. Everybody listened to something different, so there was a good mix of metal, techno, industrial. My neighbor was furious at some point and apparently called the police to file a noise complaint. Luckily, when they pulled up, one of my guys saw them driving up as he was out for a quick cigarette. Now comes the fun. We turned the music down before they came up, so when they rang the doorbell and I opened, they could not hear anything too noisy, just a few guys having some beer and a little poker game. They told us there was a noise complaint from a neighbor saying it was too loud and that this was something constant. We told them we've been like this for hours. Then I had a genius idea. I asked them if my neighbor called them, which of course they couldn't answer, but I knew what was what. So I invited the 2 cops in and told them I'd show them what real noise disturbance looked like. I led them to my bedroom where one could still hear my neighbor throwing tantrums, and I told the cops the whole story. And since they were already here, that I would like to file a noise complaint against him. The cops were shocked at the noise you could hear from the other flat and went directly over to his flat to tell him to shut up and that he would get reprimanded by written letter to keep the noise down and don't call the police for false emergencies. I had a huge laugh as the cops came back to tell me to call them when he did something like this again, because in that case, I would be able to file charges. So, long story short, he thought the police would shut me down. Instead, it was the other way around. I never slept better than that night, and finally I had some peace at home. I hope you enjoyed it. Am I the jerk for kicking my husband out of our kid's room? I'm 36, female, and my 13-year-old son's birthday was last month. I got him an Xbox that he's been wanting for a very long time. He was able to get it after I saved up for it myself, since my husband used to call this stuff useless and say we shouldn't spend money on it. My husband liked playing with the Xbox very much. First, he'd play with our son, but now has completely taken over and won't even let our son play with it even for a few hours, not even on the weekends. He's playing most of the time from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m., then sleeps till 12 p.m., spends a few hours visiting gaming stores to buy new games or borrows games from his friends or nephews. Then he sits in the living room and starts yelling and cursing and pretends like he's talking to the other players while he's actually talking to the screen. He wouldn't sit at the table to eat and instead eats in front of the screen. He won't sit with the kids and tells them he's busy whenever they ask him to help with homework. I just sit on the couch feeling like I'm not even there while he yells and curses in front of them. When I told him this has been affecting his work because he'd go to sleep at 6 a.m. and wake up at 12 p.m., he asked me what I wanted him to do. Go to sleep at 6 and go to work at 8? He'd call work to tell them he won't come or get someone else to cover for him, even offer them dinner or money, but never really keeps his promise. I was too embarrassed to talk to anyone about this. He is clearly being obsessed. I had an argument with him when he made me lie to his mom, then found out he was at home when I told her he wasn't. He moved into the kids' room so he could focus on playing. The kids wouldn't even be able to sleep because of him being there late at night. Last night, my daughter came to me wanting to sleep in my room, saying she couldn't sleep because her dad was in their room yelling all night. I was so mad at him, especially after I told him to stop because the kids couldn't sleep because of the noise. He kept saying, "Give me a few minutes," till it was 1:30. I had enough at this point and I unplugged the Xbox and told him he was no longer allowed to do this in the kids' room when the kids needed to sleep so they could concentrate on school. He blew up on me for ruining his game and following him from one room to another and making him miserable. He argued that I have no right to kick him out of his kid's room and called me controlling for how I handled the situation when I've already told him, but he didn't listen. Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or her husband? Please let us know. If it were the new PlayStation, I could understand, but Xbox? Bruh. Don't drop too many fries? Sure thing. So right now I'm working in fast food at a certain place with square burgers, making fries and nuggets. Now, at said place, it was fine. My coworkers are great, really nice people. They cover me when I clean instead of putting me at the mercy of my managers. Speaking of the managers, they are almost all nice. Notice the almost. It will be important later. Since I'm still in high school and I surprisingly have a life, I'm shocked also. I can only work Saturdays and Sundays, with Saturdays being 5 to 9 and Sundays being a mix between 7 to 3:30 and 8 to 4 respectively. Now, since my football season just ended, I am called in on a Friday. This is before I fully knew the worst manager there. Let's call her Vanessa. So I do what I normally do. Drop the fries, pull them up after the timer goes off, drop them into the fries holder, salt them, and put them in a carton, ready to eat. You're supposed to also use the drop timers, which is supposed to keep track of how long they're sitting there, and after a certain set time, you throw them away. I see next to no one do this, so I assumed I shouldn't do it. Well, Vanessa noticed this and began to chew me out because of it, but in a way that was way extra. This got me a bit upset, but I had no choice but to use them. Now, the reason we don't use them is because it slows things down. You're supposed to drop more fries when the timer says no, but this isn't possible during the lunch or dinner rush without causing major overflow. Now, Vanessa tells me to switch out trash cans, so I let the guy on grill, we'll call him Chad, know to keep an eye on it and to use the timer because Vanessa wanted me to. So I switch them out, and no later than 2 minutes after I'm done, she gets up in my face about not dropping it on the timer. I tried to explain to her why this wouldn't work, but she insisted on it, so I used the timers and slowed down production. The rush died down a bit, and I still used the timers as I didn't want my head chewed yet again for a third time. Nonetheless, Vanessa found a way to scream at me. She told me to drop less fries, idiot. Now I politely told her that she was the one who told me to drop it on said timer. Now, what I said and how I said it didn't show the complete riot going on in my head. I was saying to myself, "Jerk, you just said to drop more." She screams at me to do it anyway. Cue the malicious compliance. So the rush picks back up, and I do not drop a single fry. I take box after box from each and every order until there was enough in there for one more large fry. That's when I dropped the amount for another large fry right then. I also followed the left and right basket rule. No basket of fries from the right to go on the left to really stick it to her. Manager tries to chew me out once again, but I informed her that I was just following her orders. She tries to flip the script, saying she never said that and that she was going to write me up for it. Thankfully, Chad overheard the previous conversations and let her know that yes, she did say that. She tries to put Chad down, telling him to mind his business and threatened him a write-up. Seems like game over for us, right? Except it isn't. Our second savior, the other manager, was working at that point. Let's call him Aaron. Also overheard the conversation and also let her know that she said that. Now she can't threaten a write-up on someone on the same level as herself. So what does she do? Excuses herself and him to the back, where a glorious shouting match had occurred. We all heard the yells and promptly pulled out our phones. We all see Vanessa storm up here, screaming, "Forget you all!" and leaves out the front door in front of a crowd full of people, a 2020 crowd as I like to call them, and put the pedal to the metal on her 2005 Honda Civic, and that was the last of Vanessa. After the fact, we got a new manager that was leagues better than Vanessa, and everything was in balance. And to add salt to her massive wound, I found her recently at another fast food chain where I said to her, "Don't drop too many fries, lady." Speaking of fast food, what's your favorite fast food place? Please let us know.
McDonald's over everything, bruh. We'll give you a special shout out in our next video if you click this button and join as a channel member today.
And come watch this video next, the one that just popped up on the screen. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.